we're going to be talking about an ultra-exclusive event that I was invited to, where I got to see unreleased products, I got to see how the Sig soup was made, and I wined and dined on the company dime with the industry's best and brightest, because I have finally arrived. I'm finally getting the recognition that I deserve. What? Cameraman? So yes, I was a cameraman. Yes, I slept on a Dunkin' Donuts bathroom floor. And yes, most of the other gun tubers gave me false contact information because I am subhuman, sub 20K subscriber trash. I mean, James Reeves' number rings up as JG Wentworth customer service. What the hell is that? We're talking Sig Next 2024. Sig Next is an early look at the upcoming products from Sig Sauer, also giving a chance to talk to the experts, the developers, the engineers of said products, and then also getting a glimpse of their manufacturing process, which, big surprise, is pretty modern, utilizes the latest kit, and has a lot of robotics involved. Here's everything they had at this demonstration. The P320X5 SXG, which is a full-sized, fully steel handgun nearing 50 ounces aimed at competition shooters. P226 40th Anniversary, which is a vintage throwback to the gun's original roots and even comes with vintage packaging. The P365 Fuse is the largest version of the P365 yet, with a 4.3-inch barrel and a 21+1 round capacity. The 226X5 Reserve is an all-out custom model with lock grips, a mirror-like finish, a comped barrel, and more. The P320 Flux Legion is an upgraded version of the Flux with a slew of Legion upgrades and some further development of the platform. The Cross Magnum Sawtooth is a lightweight and versatile high country bolt gun, and then there's also the cross-chambered in 277 Fury. The commercial version of the Spear XM7 finally makes its appearance, both in 6.8x51 and 7.62x51. There was also a series of thermal optics, including a clip-on, which I thought was the most interesting. There were 2 enclosed pistol optics, which, to be honest, didn't get a lot of attention. And lastly, they showed off 3 new ammo loads, including the super hot 277 Fury. That's a lot to cover, so don't worry, I'm just going to focus on my highlights, but first, let's talk sponsors. This program is brought to you by X-Star USA, maker of fine polymer bits out of Arizona. They're a wonderful company, they're an American company, and they make products that are lightweight, easy to shoot, reliable, and most of all, they're very affordable. So make sure to check them out at xstarusa.com. Tell them 12 Spies sent you. Reap Weaponry should be a familiar name by now, on this channel at least, and you'll know that if you take an SCY kit, you can turn your AR-15 into a bullpup, maintaining all the strengths, all the great things about the AR platform, the availability of parts, the trigger feel, the reliability, and put it into a bullpup form, which traditionally has none of those things. And I gotta say, I've made several now. I don't know which one's my favorite. It's probably going to be my CMMG 16-inch build, which I'm about to slap an 18-inch barrel on, but I also really like the Jackal, and I'm working with my FFL to make a fully semi-auto 22, which is going to be wild. I might have to do a video on that coming up, but if you click the link below and go to reapweaponries.com, you can support me. Also use the code CELLS at checkout for free shipping. And to clarify, this is not a controlled item. It can ship to your door, 50 state legal, with no background check. So let's go over my highlights from the event in no particular order. The first one is going to be the Flux Legion. Now, the Flux platform is nothing new. Antimatter has been putting out various versions of these with different handguns, and the Flux Legion might seem like a very minor improvement over the existing one, but for me, it was one of the first times to get hands-on with this particular platform, and I think there are a lot of strengths. It's very compact. It has a lot of benefits over a handgun, like more points of contact, and it's closer to your body when you're shooting it, which means you're less susceptible to an attacker getting to your gun. And a lot of the weight is rearward for a good balance. Rearward, almost like a bullpup. Don't ruin this, Caleb. Don't ruin it. It's a good thing. The Flux Legion has the fire control unit of the P320 Legion and has a few other benefits like a comped barrel. But probably the coolest trick is that using your offhand when it's wrapped around the reserve magazine holder, you can press and release both magazines with one button, which means when your primary mag goes empty, you already have your hand near the reserve magazine. You can press it, both mags will release, one mag is falling free, you're holding that reserve one, you can go back, put it in, and you have another 30 rounds to work with. I really like that setup. I really like what it does for personal protection. And the P365 Flux is even more interesting. The antimatter guys were walking around with it appendix carried, and it wasn't any more girthy than what I would say is like a full-size handgun when you're carrying an appendix. And you can draw it, the stock will extend, you can put it to your shoulder very fast, get shots on target with a lot more stability and keeping it much tighter to your person. What's also interesting is that the Flux Legion is being produced in Sig Sauer's factory alongside the other Sig Sauer products. So you know that the fit and finish is going to be there. It's going to match the quality of existing Sig products, and it's not going to feel like a kit when it comes together. I think there's a lot of potential here. I can't wait to get my hands on one again, and I've been talking to the antimatter guys, and I really hope that they decide to work with me in the future. So great meeting them. Next up is their Echo line of products, specifically the CV25, which is a clip-on thermal that you can mount in front of your existing optic. It was pretty lightweight, not light enough where you'd want to use it as a monocular for a helmet. I mean, shoot, I would try it. It has a 640 by 512 50 Hz thermal core with 20 millikelvins of sensitivity, which I don't really know what that means, and unfortunately, I could not get good footage down through the optic, but I wish you could see what I saw. It was very clear, had a lot of adjustments, and there's a lot of tricks that go along with this. For instance, their eyepiece is parallax-free. So basically, even if it's not mounted perfectly in front of your existing optic, as you look through that, it's going to make the image look like you're looking at it straight on, which takes a lot of the, I'm working with an I-ray optic right now, and I'm trying to mount it in front of my optic, and it's always just a little too high or a little too low, and you just don't get the right sight picture out of it. But Sig has somehow wizarded their way around this. And of course, what would it be without some great software? One of the programs they have is Ballistic Data Exchange, which basically remembers the existing settings from your thermal on other guns. So when you switch it to another gun, you don't have to spend all that time re-zeroing it. But even more than that, it can remember your ballistic data and actually place a dot on the screen for your holdover. So it is working with you to put things on target and doing it across multiple platforms. And I expect that you'll see this show up on some of their other optics in the future, but it was really cool to see it in action. Now, before we get to the next one, let me admit that I was a pretty big fan of the General Dynamics, well, it's not General Dynamics anymore, RM277 NGSW entry, which was the bullpup with the reciprocating barrel, and it had the polymer cased ammo. That to me was very next gen. But they went with the XM7 instead. And what we're talking about now is the civilian version of the XM7, which has the same round. You can get it in the 277 Fury, which out of a 16-inch barrel was shooting nearly 3,100 feet per second. That is rapid for a 113 grain projectile. And that's all part of that special case. It's got an extra steel piece on the bottom that allows higher pressures to be run. I believe they're running in excess of 90,000 PSI. But the XM7, remember when I first saw it, it looked very large. It looked like an overweight gun, like they had just supersized it, McDonald's style, like everything's just overweight in America. But now that I've had my hands on, now that I've ran it, it feels much more comfortable than I expected. It's not nearly as heavy as I expected. Now, what was most interesting about this was kind of the look into the future. We were in Ron Cohen's office and looking at all the guns on his wall, and he was just talking to us like we had just, we were just buddies that had swung by. And he was saying, I know it's not important to people right now, the XM7, because the 277 Fury is not ubiquitous enough, and the XM7 itself is still pretty expensive and not widely available yet. But he said, picture over the next 30 years, now that we have this NGSW contract, what's that going to do to the availability? What's that going to do to what you have in your hands as a consumer as it trickles down? I mean, are we going to start seeing some 277 Fury Aero Precisions, BCMs, Anderson Manufacturing? Pricing really wasn't emphasized. Yes, all these products are very expensive. And yes, some of them are pretty niche. Like I really liked the 226 that was all tricked out with the black mirror finish and the lock grips and the extra controls and the compensated barrel. That thing was so cool. But as soon as I got my hands on it and I saw how many fingerprints I left on it, and then I saw the price, I was like, this isn't for me. So it wasn't a standout object for me. We saw a lot of stuff at the factories. We saw them building everything. They're putting out 6,000 3,000 handguns a day, and that doesn't include rifles. But as we walked through and we saw machine after machine after machine, and robots and CNC machines and treating machines and pressure cookers, there was a very common theme that rose to the surface, and that was that Sig was willing to spend any amount of money and will spend any amount of money on something that will improve the quality of the product and improve the process. I don't know what capacity they were turned up to at the moment. It might have been a 4 out of 10, but I believe that if they needed to switch to a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 or an 11 out of 10, that those processes that they've set in motion are ready to go. And there's little things like they will, around the gas block of the XM7 on the barrel, they will grind that surface down for fitment of the gas block instead of milling it, because apparently you get more precision from grinding, keeping more metal there on the barrel. And a lot of people might say, well, once you put the gas block on and you start running it, carbon will form up and actually seal off those spaces. But Sig Sauer was committed to, we don't want to rely on carbon buildup to fix this problem. We want to make it so that it's as precise as we possibly can. And that's probably what led to a lot of their government contracts. I know it's easy to say that they're greasing palms, and we all have our jokes about Sig Sauer. Someone got a yacht after that one. But I can tell that as hard as they work and as deliberate they are about their processes, they take those accusations very personally. I can tell that they have passion that goes beyond just get the contract, make it. They want to be the best above and beyond. So I want to say thanks to Sig Sauer for putting on such a quality event. The guests you had, the speeches that people made were not this dry, put me to sleep, corporate-y jargon. They were funny. These were people that love what they do, and you have incredible staff. Make sure you hold on to them. A big shout out to Aaron, Arnie, Mike, Dirty Mike and the boys. That's all about Sig Sauer. I didn't even tell you about my trip with Weaponry. We went to Formula Drift, New Jersey. It was awesome. They sponsored a car, Alec Robbins, number 35. He has a supercharged V8 350Z. He is a pro driver, and I'll tell you, that was wild to watch. Thanks for watching, and remember that your rights are given to you by God, not by government. And that's very clear in our Declaration of Independence, where it says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, there are journalists these days, I call them shills, that will tell you that you're a Christian nationalist if you believe that your rights come from anything other than the government themselves, from Congress, from articles that they created, mainly because they want to be able to take your freedoms away. So I'm going to encourage you, especially after 4th of July, to cast off your dependence on the government. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, but don't look to them to save you, and don't look to them to grant you some measure of freedom that God has already given you. There is freedom in God, and I'm here to tell you that God is for you. He is not necessarily for all your addictions or your missteps, but God is for you. And if God is for us,